as we've said, this is a paper that was done in June 2019. So the paper had a case study relating to Centralized Energy Limited and the HR situation obtaining and how it has been able to enhance its competitiveness and create a niche in its market. So there are 4 questions. Now, incidentally, if you read through the question vis-a-vis the case, you will realize that the questions you can attempt even without reference to the case. That if you embark on attempting the questions and seeking the responses from the case itself, you read and read and you realize you are not going anywhere. That is why I was advising in the other paper that there may be wisdom in you attempting to tackle the exam questions by starting with the others, because at times the case study question may throw you off balance. You may read through the question, read the case again, but you're not seeing the answers. So if you find a case similar to this one, you will realize the answers are things you know, but outside the case, they are not directly extracted from the case. Not directly extracted from the case. Now, in terms of responses, question 1A. The company regularly carries out job analysis exercise. Specify the methods that it may use to carry out the exercise. For that, you add 10 marks. So the first response, what had you given us?
I had said observation.
Observation as a method, where the analyst observes the job holder as they execute, performs the job duty. Any other method? Observation, the other one? Hello? We almost look like 8 or 10 methods we covered that can be used for job analysis.
Can say interview method, whereby you interview the employee.
The job analyst interviews the job holders, interview method. Next. Anything else?
Mwalimu, can we say open-ended questionnaires?
Open-ended questionnaires. Questionnaires are a tool that is used for collecting data for purposes of research and, more importantly, job analysis. In job analysis, we use questionnaires. Anything else?
Simulation exercises.
Expound.
Whereby it's more of observation, whereby you put the employees you want to analyze their jobs, you put them in a job environment and you take note of how they are doing the work. Yeah.
Any other method of job analysis that we covered?
Madam, can I talk of daily diaries?
Diaries?
Yeah.
How does it work?
Whereby the job holders record the main activities they perform on daily basis.
On a daily basis, the job holders will record the activities they perform. So from reviewing those diaries, you get to understand what the jobs are about. Any other method we've left out?
Actual job performance. Actual job performance.
Actual job performance. But for the analyst here, we'll call it a performance tryout, where the analyst also tries performing some of the job roles and try and appreciates how complex, difficult, simple the jobs actually are. So each method you identify and you explain, you get your 2 marks. Question B. The selection process entails the use of selection tests. Explain the requirements that such tests should meet to be effective. The selection process entails the use of selection tests. Explain the requirements that such tests should meet to be effective. Tests are one of the tools that we use during selection to be able to eliminate candidates, those candidates who do not meet the requirements of the job. So that you have a pool of candidates, you administer your selection criteria. Part of what you'll be looking at in eliminating candidates, so to speak, and what you want to eliminate candidates will be tests. So you want tests that will achieve the objective of yielding the best applicants for the job. So you are being asked by the examiner here to explain the requirements that selection tests should meet to be effective. So what comes to mind? Selection tests. Anyone?
Mwalimu, can you say adequate information about the candidates?
Adequate information about the candidate implying? Expound a bit.
Like understanding the background of the candidate and the skills they have to see whether they are suitable for the position that you're looking to fill.
I don't know, look at that in what perspective. The test that you want to administer should match the profile of the candidate such that you don't want a situation where you've set a testing instrument that has been set is so complex, it's like an exam, yet you're just using it for purposes of eliminating candidates. So you need to understand the persons to whom you are preparing the tests so that you design an appropriate test that basically can help you get the right candidate for the job that you are recruiting. Anything else you want to consider?
The tests must be designed and administered by trained professionals.
You want professionals in test design and administration to oversee the process. Otherwise, anybody else will give you a test instrument that may not serve the intended purpose. Yes? Anything else? If you refer to your notes, when we do
Okay, there's one here, Mwalimu.
after interviews, we've done tests, and somewhere after the tests, you have these requirements. The test should guarantee
there's only a norm
to all candidates who will be subjected to the test, not a situation where it favors some to the detriment of others. Sorry, somebody was speaking.
Yes, I have something here says that norms should be developed for each test. Their validity and reliability for a given purpose should be established before they are used.
Their validity and reliability. Every testing instrument, validity and reliability is key. That even when administered again and again, you are certain it will yield the desired outcome. It will give you the right candidates, not developing a test instrument for only one candidate or one kind of persons, but you administer it in another group, it doesn't give you the right candidate. So test validity and test reliability. Anything else?
Tests should be used as a screening device.
Yeah, you're using tests to screen candidates, but what should the tests have to be effective? So when you will make reference, you want to make sure that potential users of the tests will satisfy themselves that it is appropriate to administer and the results useful for purposes of decision making. Tests, another point you'd want to talk about is tests should be designed to incorporate all critical factors relevant to the employment or the job situation that you want to assess the suitability of the candidate. So all the critical parameters should be incorporated in the test, that when we evaluate the outcomes, we can use it to get the candidate. So issues to do with designing or of the test instrument, administration, using professionals. Test to guarantee equal opportunities to all candidates. Test reliability, validity. It's critical for us to conclude that this test is effective. Potential users to satisfy themselves that the testing instrument will yield results that are useful for purposes of decision making. Then also we say all tests should incorporate all the relevant factors about the job that relevant factors in the employment situation for the job. Then you administer that test instrument. Question C. Question C says what? The company
The company anticipates to employ over 500 additional employees in the next 5 years. Evaluate the techniques that it might have used to forecast demand for labor.
So the company wants to employ an additional 500 employees. So what techniques will it employ? Will it use to focus demand for labor? We say the labor in HR planning, when we are focusing for demand, we are trying to work out how many people we are projecting, how many people we will need based on the obtaining circumstances in the organization. So what techniques can you employ for purposes of human resource demand forecasting? Any techniques you might remember? What techniques to use in human resource demand forecasting?
Mwalimu,
Hmm.
you can use managerial forecasting
Hmm.
where the manager who already knows how many employees they need and how many employees they will need in future.
So a
So he will
manager will
advise
be
you.
able to do the job over a number of years, has experience, and you can rely on the experience to be able to help you forecast accurately how many people you will need to operate. Anything else? Any other method?
The trends.
Sorry?
The trend, the number of people that might be required. Mama, stop, Jay.
Kindly just mute yourself, unmute yourself when you want to talk. Just unmute yourself when you have a point. Otherwise, let all of us be mute so as to avoid unnecessary distractions. So methods or techniques used in demand forecasting. What techniques come to mind? There was managerial forecasting. Any other?
There's trend analysis in terms of demand for the goods and services.
So you can work out based on the recent trends and use that to project where we are heading to. Anything else? Any other methods or techniques? You can employ mathematical models. There are mathematical models that you can use to make projections of, to work out accurately, like regression analysis can help you in make these progressions. You can bring in experts, constitute a team of experts, and let the experts come in to deliberate and look at the scenario and relying on their expertise, be able to give you projections as to how many people we will need based on our forecast levels of business activity. There is also work study method where you can study the volume of work, the work processes, and use these outcome to be able to accurately determine how many people you will need based on the projected volume of work. So far, questions 1A, 1B, 1C, you are applying your knowledge from elsewhere without necessarily making reference to the case. Question 1D. The company's human resource philosophy underscores the need to comply with relevant statutory provisions. Explain the provisions of the Employment Act that it should comply with in relation to deductions on employee wages? What are the allowable deductions as per the Act that you can make on the employee's wages? Allowable deductions. Anyone? Allowable.
Statutory deductions.
Yes?
Statutory deductions like NHIF and LSSF.
Statutory deductions. Anything else?
The employee should give a consent of the deductions.
Any other deductions or any deductions that are authorized by the employee in writing?
PAYE and
Mwalimu,
PAYE. I wanted to say
also any
PAYE.
amount that the employee has been paid in excess of his wages, the employer can deduct.
Any amount that the employee has been paid in excess as wages. So if you are to be paid 50, but erroneously they sent you somebody else's pay, you got 90 in your bank, then these erroneous amounts can be recovered from the pay. Anything else?
The equivalent of a day's wage for each day is absent without a permission.
The equivalent of a day's wage for the day that the employee is absent without authority. Anything else?
Union dues.
Union dues. When a employee belongs to a union, this can be recovered. Anything else?
The loss
Any
of cash.
damage, any damage that employee might have caused.
Any
damage.
Any damage? Damage for what?
That is damage done or lost to a property caused by willful default by the employee.
So if there is any damage to the employer property caused by willfully by the employee, then you can recover. Anything else?
Any cash lost while in the custody of the employee and it was his duty to take care of that money.
So if you are entrusted with making payments, like the person who administers petty cash, and out of your negligence or dishonesty, we lose some of the money, we can recover. Anything else?
An order given by the minister.
If there is an order given by the minister. Anything else?
Recovery of any amount that might have been paid on top of the employee's salary, more than whatever the employee expected to be paid.
Any excess amounts. So contribution to superannuation, provident fund, reasonable amount for loss or damage of property out of willful conduct of the employee, up to a day's wages for any day that you are absent without authority or lawful cause, any excess amount as wages paid in error to the employee, any amount of shortage arising from negligence or dishonesty of the employee who is entrusted with the money, payment requested by the employee in writing where the employer has no direct or indirect interest, or any amounts authorized under written law or CBA or determination or order, court order, repayment of loan made to an employee by the employer, but this must not exceed 1/3 of the employee's wages after deductions. There should be no deductions made as a reward for employment or retention as an employee. The total deductions should not exceed 2/3 of the wages. And the employer should generate a statement of deductions, summarizing all the deductions effected over the period. So for such a question on extraction from the Act, as many points as you can give, the better. That area where there are so many points in the Act, it might be prudent to extract and give as many points as you can. Don't just assume 5 would be sufficient for such a question that calls for extraction from the Act. So that was section A. Section B. Section B, we are told answer any 3 questions from this section. So there are questions 2, AB, 3, AB, 4, AB, 5, AB, 6, AB. Question 2A. A human resource audit at Devon Media Center Limited has revealed that there is surplus, labor surplus in the organization. Evaluate the options available to the management in handling the surplus labor. So you've done the audit that has revealed that there is surplus labor at Devon Media Center Limited. So what options are available to the management in handling the surplus? Anyone?
Mwalimu, you can advocate for early retirement for persons who have neared retirement. So it can be voluntary.
You can advocate for voluntary early retirement for those about to retire. Anything else?
Freeze recruitment and only recruit
Freeze
when
recruitment. You cannot be having surplus labor and you continue recruitment. Anything else?
when an employee resigns or there is death, there should be no replacement.
Non-replacement of staff who exit for whatever reason.
Do away with overtime.
You eliminate overtime. You cannot have a situation where you are having surplus labor, but you are still paying other people to work overtime. Anything else? Any other options you may want to consider?
Can you use, Can you use sending people on leave in the short term?
Say that again.
You send people away on leave in the short term. Those people who don't take leave.
Leave of
You make them
absence
take,
without
yes.
pay. That can be explored. You can eliminate all subcontracted work. You cannot have other job subcontracted. You're using outside contractors, yet you're having surplus labor. Then you can lay off or retrench either permanently or temporarily. And final, you can declare redundancies where you eliminate certain positions totally from the organization. Question 2B?
Mwalimu, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Can you employ the use of people working in shifts?
Yeah, you can explore that if you like the hotels that normally use such approaches, but that now is during their low seasons. They have labor, but they cannot optimally utilize them. So they work in reduced hours, so to speak. 2B, explain the information that a job analysis is likely to reveal about a job. When you carry out a job analysis exercise, what kind of information are we likely to obtain about that job? Somebody?
Job identification.
Job identification.
Yeah, we are able to know about the job
Title
title.
and overall purpose of the job. Anything else?
Yeah.
Who the job reports to, the reporting lines.
Reporting lines, so that there's clarity who the job holder is supposed to report to. Anything else?
The qualifications required to meet the job.
There?
The qualifications required to be able to meet the job.
Qualifications will be summarized in the job specification after you have the job description.
The overall
Tasks, duties, and responsibilities.
Sorry?
Tasks, duties, and responsibilities of the job.
Task, the job content, the tasks, duties, responsibilities that the job holder would have. Anything else?
the overall purpose of the job.
The overall purpose, why the job exists.
Materials and equipment needed to do the job.
The kind of material and equipment needed to do the job. The accountability, significant
Performance.
characteristics about the job, or the organizational factors around which the job holder will be operating. So each of the points identified and explained, you get your 5-10 marks. Question 3A. Analyze the likely indicators of a mismatch between an employee's ability and the demands for the job. You have an employee, they are working, but you realize, you feel like there's a mismatch between the ability of the employee and the job demands. What are the indicators that will tell you that here there is likely a mismatch between the abilities of the employee and the job demands?
High level of stress.
high level of stress.
Stress. Yes.
Because of?
Maybe not being able to cope with the job pressures. Maybe the behaviors expected the employee doesn't have. So they are really having to act in the role.
So your inability to cope with job pressure. Anything else?
Poor performance.
Poor performance. An employee who who does not match the job, definitely their performances will be poor. Anything else?
Delayed deliverables.
Delayed deliverables.
What about disengagement?
Sorry, say that again.
Disengagement.
Expand.
Absenteeism.
Expound disengagement first.
The employee is just not present. Just mentally doesn't focus on the work. You can observe this from the behavior.
So an employee is there, but he's not there. Anything else?
Absenteeism.
Absenteeism. You will look for an excuse or a reason why to be absent because you know your being in the office is as a challenge. Anything else?
Frustrations and raising complaints about the job every time by the same employee.
You are frustrated and constantly complaining about the job, about your colleagues, about your supervisors, about job frustrations generally are high.
Frequent workplace accidents.
Increase accidents at the workplace. Wastage of materials and machinery breakdown can show that. Or you may have situations where the person easily meets or performs the job and is able to, every other time you look at the person, you imagine this person is idle because they can easily meet and the expectations of the target set are way below them, way below their abilities. That also is as an indicator that maybe there is a mismatch. So the job has been, these are the targets, but if you look at the ability of the person, he's able to do it almost like, even you wake him up at midnight, he does it while sleepwalking, showing there is a mismatch between the job requirements and the abilities or skills of the employee. Question 3B. With respect to the Occupational Safety and Health Act 2007, examine safety provisions that an occupier should comply with in case of fire. With respect to the Occupational Safety and Health Act 2007, examine safety provisions that an occupier should comply with in case of fire. Who is an occupier as per OSHA? Who is an occupier?
The employer.
Who is an occupier?
The person, the
Any
employer.
person in charge.
That person who has overall control over the organization, the workplace, the establishment, the employer is an occupier. So what are the duties of an occupier with respect to fire? OSHA.
Ensure that they are labeled fire congregation areas in case of a fire.
Say that again, sorry, you are breaking.
Ensure that there are spots that are well labeled as fire, I'd say congregation areas in case of a fire in the building.
Well labeled place for congregation in case of a fire, where the head count will be taken. Anything else?
To ensure
Provision.
that there is a risk assessment by an approved officer who will in turn, at the end of it, a certificate, fire clearance certificate is issued.
Risk assessment by an authorized officer so as to give a clearance certificate. Anything else?
Provide adequate means of escape in case of a fire.
Means of escape routes should be clear so that in case of a fire, you need to even have routines, fire drills, so as everybody knows how to operate, how to work, how to manage the situation in case of a fire. Anything else?
To ensure that the company does annual fire audits.
Annual fire audit.
Provision of fire extinguishers, fire blankets in specific locations within the work area.
Extinguishers, blankets, so that in case of a fire, you can manage. Anything else? So you have clarity of what evacuation procedures are in place to be used when there is a fire.
Training of staff on fire and security.
Staff training, sensitization on fire.
You should report the incident to the minister.
Report the incidents to the minister. To make reference to the Act, the OSHA Act, there are provisions relating to fire. You look at section 82, listed for what you need to do. Also, when you look at the duties of an occupier, even section 81, you can borrow. on what an occupier is expected to do with respect to management of fire. Examine the arguments, question 4a. Examine the arguments that an employer may raise to justify termination of a contract of employment. Examine the arguments that an employer may raise to justify termination of a contract of employment. What arguments can you advance to justify why you terminated a contract of employment? Anyone?
Mwalimu, I can try. In case of death, the employer can say he terminated the contract because the person who was holding the job position naturally died.
In case of death,
Poor performance.
for terminating a contract.
I have a question. When it comes to death, isn't it automatic that the contract is terminated? Do you have to give that as a reason? Or that's just automatic? The way somebody can become insane and you just give a reason.
Is it automatic? When somebody dies, can they come back?
No.
They are dead, they are gone. Would there be an incident where somebody may ask why these contracts were terminated? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Maybe when you are auditing your HR, then the records are brought in, and then you are now to account why certain contracts have been terminated, where some were extended. You can account and explain. These ones, the employees unfortunately died. These ones, A, B, C, D. So death, yes. Anything else?
Poor performance.
Poor performance is a
Gross
ground for
misconduct.
termination.
Gross misconduct.
Gross misconduct. When an employee.
Medical grounds.
You can be terminated on medical grounds. When your condition refuses that you cannot continue in employment, then you can be terminated.
When an employee commits an offense for which is detained for more than 14 days.
You commit an offense for which you are jailed for more than 2 weeks. But now that is misconduct. When we talk gross misconduct, it captures all that.
Termination by resignation.
Out of the employee's own volition. Why was the contract terminated? The employee resigned.
If the contract comes to an end, is that a point?
If?
When the contract comes to an end, like it has already finished its period.
The contract comes to an end, the contract period, contract duration comes to an end. There may be, the employer may have issues operationally or based on the changes in the nature of the work, determining that they need to maybe restructure, retrench some staff, they terminate. If an employee participates in an illegal strike, Participation in an illegal strike will lead to termination. Several reasons. 4B, identify 5 challenges that expatriate managers are likely to face while working in a foreign country. Challenges that expatriate managers are likely to face while working in a foreign country. Any such challenges that may come to mind?
The culture shocks.
Yes, I wanted to say that. Okay.
Culture shock. So the culture in one country is totally different from your culture.
A language barrier.
Language barrier is a consideration.
The issue of work permits.
Suffer from.
The issue of getting the required documents to work in the country, like work permits.
The issue of getting
required documents or papers to work in a certain country, like work permits.
So the documentation and papers that you need to be able to legally work in a given country. Anything else? Is the aspect socially, you are lonely. You are here alone, your family is in China. Does that affect you? You look around, probably you know nobody. Your closest relation is 10,000 kilometers away. Does that affect you? Of course it does. There's a challenge to do with finances and the costs, the inconveniences associated with movements. But you can look at, you can even break those as two. The cost and inconveniences are associated. You want to move, you have to consider what happens to you, what happens to your spouse, what happens to your children. Say they are still schooling, how will they continue, how will that affect them? Consideration. Then finances. How will you be paid? Will you be paid in your local currency? Will you be paid in dollars? What currency will you be paid in? Then when you come here, the dynamics are totally different from what obtains elsewhere. You go to the market, you want to buy things. You come from the US, where you buy avocado at 300-400 bob, 2 pieces. Here you go to the market, 2 pieces you'll buy at maybe 20 or 20 bob. How to reconcile such becomes a challenge. You are thinking in your local currency, but you're operating in a different currency. Challenges faced by expatriates. Then there's also being able to fit in with the legal requirements. If it is, say, a HR practitioner, being able to translate and fit into the requirements in the local setup vis-a-vis what was there in your country of origin is totally different and is a challenge many expatriates suffer. Question 5A. Explain the benefits of a centralized recruitment and selection process in an organization. Centralized recruitment and selection process, where recruitment and selection process is done in a central setup, like say the Public Service Commission. They recruit centrally. What would be the benefits? For the whole country, the entire civil service, the recruitment is done centrally by this Public Service Commission. So what will be the benefit of such a recruitment and selection process? Anyone? Anyone?
It is cost effective.
There's an element of cost effective, so that the cost per candidate relatively will be low. Anything else?
Can we say they can use the expertise to hire quickly?
Rely on your expertise. When you centralize, you do it centrally. You can have experts, and you are able to do it in a more effective manner, faster. Anything else?
There's consistency in how the recruitment process is carried out, so there's fairness.
Uniformity and consistency. Now the process is undertaken. That gives a fair and equal chance to all candidates. Anything else?
What about something like developing that organizational capability? Because you are maintaining data banks, all those systems aligned to recruitment. So you develop the organizational capability to a very high level.
Talk of developing the capabilities, because all the systems relating to revolving around recruitment are better structured to achieve the intended objectives. Anything else that may come to mind? When you do it uniformly, then it becomes even easy to be able to fit in people into, or place people where there is need. You can transfer them from one area to another easily, because the recruitment and all was done in a standardized manner. When you do the standard centralized recruitment, then even application, when it comes to promotions, transfers, the administration of those procedures is made easier going forward, because these guys were dealt with like one cohort, so it's easier to progress and process their progression with the organization. Then also, when you do that, line managers and plant supervisors will focus on their work, leave the recruitment to others in the centralized place where recruitment is done. So the line managers focus on what they are supposed to be doing, and let recruitment and selection experts bother with that. In the process, you enhance efficiency all through the operations. Question 5B. Outline the measures that the management of an organization may take to enhance effectiveness of the human resource planning function. Human resource planning is critical for the organization. So what measures do you want to take to ensure that to enhance effectiveness of the human resource planning function? Measures you want to take, you want to make sure there is top management support, so that all the necessary resources are availed. You want to make sure that as an organization, you have the right manpower inventory, because HR planning, you're planning with details of how many people a breakdown of the staff who currently are there in your organization. So you want to have accurate HR inventory. You want to have a functional human resource management information system, because it is this system that is to be used in processing and processing the data that you will need for purposes of planning. You want to ensure there is adequate organization and support and coordination from HR department with the line managers and other functional heads. You are supporting the process. You want to make sure that your planning speaks to the corporate strategic objectives of the organization, that HR plans should contribute to the actualization of the strategic objectives of the organization. So how do you want to make sure there is that linkage between corporate objectives and HR for the HR to be effective? Otherwise, you may be planning for the HR function, but there is total disconnect between HR functional planning and corporate planning. So HR planning may not aid actualization of corporate objectives. Also, you have to be clear as to time horizons you are operating in. Are you dealing with short-term focus or long-term focus or medium-term focus as you are planning for the HR? Critical for purposes of planning. Somebody read question 6A.
Explain the benefits that an organization may derive from online recruitment of staff.
The benefits that an organization may derive from online recruitment of staff. Any benefits come to mind? Online recruitment?
They can reach a large audience.
You're able to reach a wide audience. They have a wide reach all over the world, basically. Applicants will be able to access the jobs. Anything else?
It is faster in recruitment, saves time.
The process takes a shorter duration. It's faster when you're doing it online. Anything else?
It is cost effective. Candidates do not need to travel to the location.
It's cost effective. You don't have to travel all over recruiting. Anything else?
It's also real time.
Real time. They input and you get your data immediately, and if you have a system that can even sort it for you, it's done fast time. Anything else?
It can be recorded or so stored for future reference.
You can record and store for future reference. Anything else?
It is timely as compared, for example, if it's online, it's timely in the sense that you can actually give a time limit by saying that maybe the application sort of should reach at a specified deadline, the date, and through online, you can easily assess that the application arrived past the deadline given.
So you can easily, more effective in terms of being able to process such timelines, whether the applications reached in time or not. You can personalize the design of the recruitment process so that the candidates will feel part of the process even as they are applying for the position. You can also use tools to be able to filter and sieve and eliminate unnecessary spam and applications that, should I say, not add value, so to speak. Benefits of online. Question 6B. 6B, read.
The management of Kentrack Limited intends to improve organizational productivity so as to remain competitive. Identify the strategies that it may adopt to achieve this objective.
In the notes, we call the measures of enhancing productivity. So what do you do to be able to enhance organizational productivity?
Have an effective selection and recruitment process where you hire the right people for the right job.
Effective recruitment and selection process will take you there. Anything else? Strategies to enhance organizational productivity.
Training and development of staff.
Training and development to build capacity of staff to be more productive.
What about aligning organizational systems to the strategy?
Aligning your organizational systems to your strategy so that they speak the same language.
Ensuring you have an effective performance management process and tools.
Effective performance management process and tools that you're using to evaluate performance.
An effective organizational structure and culture.
Effective organizational structure. You need to be able to manage stress at the workplace. You don't expect a stressed employee to be productive. You need to be able to provide effective leadership because we will follow the leader in terms of what is expected so as to be productive. You need to provide the necessary machinery, facilities, equipment that the labor need to deliver. Working conditions and environment, both the ergonomics and the non-physical conditions should be managed. Clear work rules, procedures, fair rules, regulations should be in place. With that, labor is productive and organization is productive. And that brings us to the end of the paper for June 2019.